Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We are now going to begin. It gives me great pleasure to ask our president of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce, who is also the CEO of CaixaBank in South Africa, to officially welcome you all. Jose Maria, please.
Well, welcome everybody. A cold day here in Johannesburg, and today with the Spanish Chamber of Commerce initiative and the collaboration of the Belgian Chamber, Chamber, and the Italian Chamber, we will try to know a little bit more about the travel and immigration regulations. We all know we saw the last report, the inquiry and challenging times. We were talking minutes ago. And for that purpose, we got today good friends. We got Hans Kroll from IBN. We got Carmen Hidalgo and Hans Kroll from Wind Travels. And we got as well Raluca Pauna from Eriskin. I don't know if we got already His Excellency, the Swiss ambassador with us, Nicolas Breuel. But in any case, he was supposed to join us at good news as well. So thank you everybody again. We will move forward. I think that we are already 32 participants. So that's it, Manuela. We can move.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Segurola. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, let's just quickly discuss the house rules, please. First and foremost, just to advise all of you, from 12 o'clock onwards, two of our panelists are going to be caught in load shedding, and that is Mr. Arthur Bosch and Carmen Hidalgo, both from Wings Travel. So as we start the discussion, I am going to ask you all to please, in the chat forum, if you have any questions for both Carmen and Arthur, just post that on either directly to me or under everybody, what your questions would be. Part of the house rules as well is to please keep both your cell phones off, because it tends to affect the connectivity here, as well as your cameras and microphones while we're busy with this. If you want to ask questions towards the end or at one time, put up your hand or send us the questions, and they will be addressed as we begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about travel and immigration regulations at the moment, there's a number of questions that actually starts coming up in everybody's mind. You know, some of the questions are going to be like, when are the borders going to really open? And we heard that the president has opened South Africa for travel now. However, the international borders remain closed at the moment. We do look at maybe some more news towards the middle of September to October with regards to international borders. Some of the other follow-up questions are, what are the risks when we travel now in this COVID world? So, you know, this does become a very worrying aspect of traveling now in this COVID world, because it's very different to what we've done in the past. And it can be very confusing. What gives me sort of some form of comfort is that we have some experts before us today. Both Arthur and Carmen have been in the travel industry for many years. And before we begin, I'm going to ask Carmen, who's also one of the directors of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. She was recently appointed as one, to just introduce the panel officially. And then we can start talking about this. Carmen, can I hand over to you to just welcome and just give our panelists some introduction for our participants, please.
Sure. Thank you, Manuela. Thank you for all joining us today. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce, firstly, Hans Kroll, Head of Business Development at IBN Immigration Solutions. So Hans has an extremely strong economic background working with foreign investors throughout his career. 2014, he started up the Johannesburg branch for IBN Immigration, and he's a familiar face within most foreign business communities in South Africa. He's also previously sat on the boards of the Spanish and Belgian chambers in the past. Then it also gives me great pleasure to introduce Raluca from Eriscan, the CEO of Eriscan. She has an MSc in engineering and a master's in innovation studies from WITS, with a diploma in competitive intelligence, certificate for IP services and theories of change studies from Stanford University. Her portfolio of innovations contains projects from bioscience, artificial intelligence, robotics, and fourth industrial revolution projects. She's also the founder and the chair of the Global Institute for Accelerating Innovation since 2006. And then my colleague, very happy to introduce Arthur Bosch, Head of Business Administration at Wings Travel Management. So Arthur's been with Wings for nearly 13 years and directs the strategies of the quality assurance, travel risk, people and knowledge management departments. His strong ISO 9001 and compliance background helps him to really drive passion for a systematic and methodical approach to applied problem solving and people logistics.
Okay, thank you so much, Carmen. And ladies and gentlemen, what I do want to share with you this morning before we begin with the panel discussion is we especially wanted to invite Raluca on board to this discussion because she's currently working on some interesting and very helpful innovations that is going to help all of us when we travel in the future. They're not quite ready yet, but it is close, and she will be discussing especially two important innovations that she's working on. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems that the questions and our environment continues to evolve, and it is very reactive right now. So travelers are very concerned of what we do, what are we allowed to do, how will we keep safe. So without further ado, I want to ask Hans Kroll from IBN Immigration Solutions the first question. Hans, what has IBN Immigration Solutions experience been in adapting to these ever-changing regulations, and how do you advise your client to remain safe in this COVID world, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Look, I mean, these have obviously been unprecedented times, very bizarre times we live in. We've been around for over 20 years, and yes, we've seen changes, in legislation, but nothing that even comes close to what we're experiencing at the moment. I think everybody is longing for certainty, and that's probably one of the few things that's completely lacking in the new world, because things change by the day. Today, South Africa is high risk. Tomorrow, Spain might be once again. And what you also see is very rushed legislation being passed in record time, trying to mitigate risk where possible. What we do see, though, is that Europe is starting to adopt some sort of joint policy with regards to the outside world, so outside Europe. So certain countries have been vetted as being safe in order to come in. But even within the European Union, you see certain countries from code yellow going back to orange and back to yellow. So yeah, there's a lot of havoc. And advising our clients is just extremely tricky at the moment and must be done with a lot of caution.
Thank you so much, Hans. Yeah, it's so true. I must say, when one lives in a chaotic environment, it does become very difficult to tell people what to do and how to do it. However, we now have an expert that I'd like to pose a question to, which is Arthur Bosch from Wings Travel. Arthur, from a travel perspective, how has Wings Travel been assisting clients in navigating this very changing COVID world, please?
Thank you for having us today. I think it's quite an exciting time. Travel by its nature has always been about moving people around, and that always suggests new experiences. So I think I would start off by just pausing and recognizing, first of all, that you used the right word there. You used a travel term. You said, how we navigate this. And navigating these uncertain times specifically for companies and businesses, we appreciate how tricky that must be right now, especially where business travel has historically been an essential component of your business. We recognize that your job at this point and your key focus at this point is to sustain your business and getting on with the job. And that's why we've grouped together a panel of people today to create a sense of reassurance, at least, that there are expert partners around. It's our job. It's the job of companies like Wings and IBM and our colleagues to act as your expert partners and to try and make your task as easy as possible. Now, the question was, how have we been helping our clients through this time? Now, navigating complicated routings and connections, well, that's always been part of travel, hasn't it? It's not that that's new. You're moving into risky areas across the globe. You're moving into risky areas in Africa, and there's tricky connections that you have to consider. There's timelines that you have to consider. I have to get on this flight at this airport, and in this country, I've got to give them this paper for me to move beyond immigration control, etc. So in terms of the complexities of travel, that hasn't changed. It's just become a little bit more complicated. And I think that's the way that the whole message of COVID in a travel environment is currently portrayed, maybe might instill a level of fear. It might instill a level of uncertainty. You know, is it safe for me to go? Now, that's not a question that anyone can, with confidence, answer for you at this point. That's a very personal decision, isn't it? But I think what we need to recognize is that it's just an added layer of complexity that's been added. Every country is free to implement travel restrictions at any point. Hans actually said that already. And it changes on the day. It might change tonight. Something new is announced. You look at the news last week and a half before. Everyone was thinking that the UK, for example, is on the trajectory to open up and everything is relaxed, and then all of a sudden stop. They have these air bridges that they've opened up between countries for safe passage. And then it was announced that there's a concern with travelers from certain countries now again, and the regulation changes instantly. So what I think it asks for is that we have to remain nimble and we have to remain flexible, right? And we have to actually adapt to this ever-changing world. But I think I'd say again, Manuela, that it's never been different, has it? If I'm busy on a journey and there's a weather pattern that has all of a sudden influenced the route that I intended in my itinerary, it's already impacting me. So let's be mindful of that. I think we sometimes, and I'm not downplaying the risk of COVID at all. I'm also not a medical expert, but I will say that we have to make informed decisions as we go along. Now, the question was, how have we been helping? Obviously, in this interim period, repatriation flights has been our largest focus, right? As soon as people need to move cross-border, my colleague Carmen will be able to tell you some interesting stories of how exciting that's actually made it for us who work in travel. It's a whole new ball game. It's not click of a button anymore where you go online and say, well, I want to fly from this place to that place, stay in this hotel and use that car hire supplier. To bring shuttle companies and let me correct myself, to bring people that do charter flights into the mix, it takes a bit longer. It's a little bit more complex. There's more paperwork to do. There's a lot more organization to do, and there's a lot more hush-hush from a security standpoint that needs to come into the mix, that Hans will be able to speak about and Carmen will be able to give you some good ideas about. Now, borders in South Africa, we're fingers crossed, hoping that happens under level 1. Might be a surprise for us. We don't know. When level 3 was initially published, restrictions that weren't part of how it ended up becoming part of level 3. So level 2 only started yesterday. Currently, it only means domestic travel is permitted. And excitedly so, by the way. I am based in Cape Town. I can promise you that the streets are flooded with excitement at this point. People are actually moving around safely, compliant, wearing masks, etc. But there's this buzz that's in the air, and that excites me working in travel to say that, well,
Arthur, we seem to have lost you. Arthur?
Yes.
We can't hear you. Oh, would you mind repeating that again? We lost the last sentence.
No problem. I'll be back.
Yes, thank you.
So I was just saying that there seems to be a buzz in the air. There's an excitement that's at least building again. And that again, for me, speaks of the social, I suppose, the social well-being of people as well. We're in our nature, we enjoy traveling. We enjoy seeing new places and connecting with people. And I think not too far in the future, we'll be able to do that. Nigeria announced this morning that their borders are opening again for international travel towards the end of the month. There's 2 other countries in Africa that's already considering that. So let's see. I think South Africa, if everything goes according to plan, level 1 might be, we're hoping, fingers crossed, happens closer than what we thought. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Arthur. Carmen, I'd like to ask you just to maybe give us some examples, because I know that you've been dealing with a number of cases and helping the Spanish Chamber members and companies to repatriate them. And one more question before that is, did we learn anything from the Ebola pandemic a couple of years ago on how to manage travel and what we do to keep people safe? And this air bridge, the bridges that Arthur was talking about, is that particularly working using the repatriation flights? And I'm now talking obviously about the Spanish Chamber members and the Spanish companies, because I know that we used, KLM, and we had to get our people from here to Amsterdam and then from Amsterdam into Spain. Is that where the air bridges started to come into effect? Can I hand over to you to answer that, please?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So I think firstly, with the air bridges, I think that's very much a European thing right now. Interestingly, we are seeing it happen in Africa slightly, like with your East African countries. So it's starting to kind of show up on Africa, but it's very much a European based concept. When we look at repatriation flights, and especially the ones we've managed to assist with for the Spanish Chamber, we were using, as you said, KLM and Air France, which is a very important partner supplier to us, and I would be remiss to not mention their support in all of this. I mean, Wings and any travel management company for that matter would not be able to operate without the support of our wonderful carriers and them really kind of getting the people there. So interestingly, as the levels have kind of changed, so has the repatriation requirements, only slightly. But I mean, from moving from level 5 to level 3, during all of that, we were repatriating people. And it's interesting, as Arthur mentioned, it's been quite exciting, in a way, because it's not normal in any sense. I mean, our consultants don't go and book it. We are dealing directly with the airline. We're having to fill out spreadsheets, send them to DIRCO, so capturing people's information. They then sent a secret location where they will be picked up by a bus and transported to an aeroplane and directly flown from there. And thereafter, I mean, the tests that we are running here in South Africa are maybe different to when they arrive in Spain. So they would then be tested again and put into quarantine for 2 weeks. So it depends on the country that they are then, traveling to as well, what their requirements are. And it was really learning as we go. We were learning with our travelers in a way and adjusting. As Arthur mentioned again, that flexibility has become so important. We've seen countries open and close their borders in the same day sometimes. So that flexibility is key.
Carmen, thank you so much for that. Obviously, I've had my step-grandson being repatriated to Germany, and all of a sudden I heard that the flights were packed. What are the different airlines doing to keep us safe at the moment while we're traveling back up and down from South Africa into Europe or wherever we need to go, please?
Yeah, look, airline carriers are being held to very strict protocols in terms of sanitization of the aircraft, mandatory sort of mask wearing on the flight. It seems to be, though, that each airline carrier is adjusting it to their kind of company policy, especially in terms of our domestic carriers. It seems to be quite up to them to adjust to the regulations. But when we're talking repatriations, yeah, they have to sanitize the entire plane. You have to wear your mask for the duration of the flight. And there's obviously spacing in between the seats. And
okay, so
a lot of airlines,
yes.
yeah, a lot of airlines are kind of offering the option to purchase the seat next to you to ensure social distancing. So, yeah.
No, thank you, Carmen. You know, I mean, that would be an expensive exercise. We used to hear at the beginning that airlines were going to sort of leave spaces in between. Are they doing that to keep us safe?
Yes and no. So I have heard of flights that have been distanced, and I've heard of flights that have not been distanced, where they do offer that option where you can purchase extra seats at a lower cost, at an additional cost, but lower than the ticket cost, obviously. So yeah, it really depends once again on the airline.
Okay. Thank you so much. And would you let us know which has better spacing or not, so that we try and book with those airlines? Would you be aware who's doing that, please?
Well, at the moment in South Africa, we are kind of limited to Air France KLM in terms of repatriation into Europe. There's not many other carriers that are doing it. In terms of other African countries, I think there are more carriers on board. So again, it depends where you need to get to and where you're coming from. But from a South African standpoint into Europe, KLM Air France is probably your best option.
Thank you so much for that, Carmen.
Pleasure.
What is important is, I was telling our audience before that you're working in innovation and creativity, and you have two particular innovations right now that you're busy with, hasn't been finalized, that will help in this COVID world, especially for travel, you know. So would you just talk to us very briefly what you're doing about this and what your two innovations are, please?
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Manola, and to everybody that is listening to us. We work in technical innovation, our company, in partnership with all over the world companies from Ireland, from Taiwan, from Australia, and from Israel. It's about making this situation, try to sort out this situation, because there are 20.2 million people infected at present today and close to 1 million deaths. So this put a fantastic pressure to healthcare and public healthcare management worldwide, because firstly, we have a problem with data, real-time data, and a problem of collecting accurate data regarding two very important issues. How the virus is spreading, where are the infection hotspots? How can we disinfect these infections hotspots and make it clean and safe? Because people can go to these hotspots and can be infected, and the situation will be not very good. So who are symptomatic, and what symptoms are the public suffering from? So reporting to doctors, and this collection of data is very important. Second, we must know who is infected, very precise, who is infected, and to quarantine the person, to give the proper treatment in time. And this is because the testing, it's a little bit hectic. Sometimes you heard in news that there are a lot of error positive, error negative. Some test kits are 70% accurate. Especially, I don't want to mention, probably you heard about, especially the Far East test kits manufactured in China. They were a lot of test kits that were not accurate. The combination of these two factors compounded the mortality rate and the poor public health advice by governments and the guidelines given, and constructed an unreliable outcome. So the management was a public and health little bit of disaster, so it didn't work very well. Let's be not so cruel to say disaster, but when people are dying, what can we say? So,
and Raluca, in light of all of this, you were telling me about your iBot innovation that you've got going. If you can tell us a little bit about the iBot and what you're also working on with regards to the air conditioning of aeroplanes. Would you just talk to us briefly about these two innovations, please? So that we know and we can see that in the future.
I put a background to understand, for everybody to understand that is very important. This kind of robotic eye will read the test of an individual that is testing at his pace at home. So he doesn't need to go to hospital. The test kit will have a device that will read and interpret and upload in the cloud the result of the test, validated by doctors, because these are the regulations of the medical councils to be validated. And this will come back to the mobile phone of the individual, where he will read if he's positive, negative, or it's yellow, is still not decided, because this one will be like a pass for the individual, for the passenger of an airplane, for a tourist, for a person who wants to go to his office back. It's a pass to go back to normal life. So this test can be done in half an hour in airports as well, to facilitate the transport, the airplane passengers to be accepted in the airplane, and everything will be general accepted by all countries, because if you do the test here and you go again and do the test in Spain, or it's not very convenient, and it's a lot of loss of resources and time. So this one will record the test under your name and will be a statistic very useful for the governments and for your further report of your how your health is conducted in time. So the statistics are very important to disinfect possible hotspots, and so it's giving many more benefits to do the test like this. Also, it's very secure because it's not manual read, it's read by the robot, and also is no interference from the patient or individual who is doing the test. So this
wonderful,
is, we are
wonderful.
Yes. Second, the substance airplanes are using already.
Can I interrupt you, please, Raluca? When do you expect this iBot to be out in the marketplace, please?
We already patented. We are busy with the prototype. Probably in October, we are going to produce the first devices and to be commercialized all over the world. It's very affordable, will be around $1, $1 one device attached to the test kit. And this will create so much information, that missing data that I was talking about. Yes. Another innovation around data, infections, cleaning, management of disinfection. It's using a substance German technology, but our model is monitoring and evaluating the disinfection using IoT and artificial intelligence and mobile platforms. We are going to monitor the infected hotspots.
Thank you so much. Yes, Raluca, thank you for that. Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to cut you a little bit because we've got a time constraint here, and especially with load shedding, so apologies for the interruption.
No problem.
Raluca, you also mentioned that you're working on some filters for air conditioning that will make the aeroplane safer. Can you very briefly tell us so that we can move on to the next questions, please?
Yes, the airplane air condition must be clean, must be disinfected, because can spread the viruses. If it's the virus is there in the airplane, it's going all over through the air condition is not good. So our advice is to use a special sensor that will identify how good is the disinfection, how well was done, and also using a special substance that is active for 7 to 10 days.
Okay,
it's
wonderful.
called Bacoban, can be purchased by any company for their own use, for their surfaces. So 7 to 2 days, the surface is active and all the viruses will be killed. So we invite you to look in our website and see what is it about.
Oh, thank you so much, Raluca. Sorry, you know, Arthur, I've got a couple of questions for you, and Carmen, seeing that we're going to be getting some, you're going to go into load shedding. Some questions here we've had a question here from Renee. We are struggling to send out our field service technicians from Johannesburg to China. Hans and Arthur, would you be able to assist Renee here, please? She is from a Swiss company. And can I just give her your contact details afterwards so that she can get your assistance, please?
Definitely.
Yeah, please.
Hans, if you can just keep that at the back of your mind just now when we answer the next question. But Arthur and Carmen, can you assist Renee with this, please?
Definitely, yes. As I probably said earlier as well, if every country has different requirements, so we would need to know the nationalities, the passport that the person's using to travel with. All of that forms part of normal visa applications. So let's look into it afterwards. By all means, link us up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Then we've got a question from Michael who says, do the South African airlines publish which aircrafts have HEPA filters? Mainly the regional SA airlines work with the older aircraft who don't have the right equipment to guarantee full filtration. Are you aware of this, and what can you respond to Michael with regards to this, please?
So I think all airlines publish kind of their aircraft information on their websites. So I would encourage people to go and have a look at each carrier. They should have the details listed there, and they can also reach out to them. Very true, you know, what he's saying in terms of the regional SA airlines. So yeah, we haven't had any communication from them with regards to them upgrading that in any way.
Thank you for that. Carmen, as Wings Travel and Arthur as well, you know, on the quality side, can you maybe let South African Airways knows that this is a concern, please, you know, on the passenger side?
Certainly do so. So
thank you so much.
If that's a question, then one would expect it to be published in public domain, because Absolutely. It's all about boosting confidence.
Perfect. Okay. And then I see that Gladys has responded to Renee, where she says, Lufthansa and Swiss Airlines are currently offering repatriation flights. You can book via Zurich or Frankfurt to Hong Kong at the moment, and then please email, and it's Johannesburg Repatriation SA@dlh.de for more details regarding these flights. Okay.
I'd just like to thank Gladys for that. I do know, sorry, Lufthansa and Swiss, quite correct, are offering repatriation flights. So if they are going on a work visa or for work purposes and are South African citizens, it would not be a repatriation. So that's where it gets a little bit different, but glad that she reached out and is willing to assist.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carmen. And then we've got another question, Carmen, to you and Arthur. Sorry, and because you guys are going on to load shedding, I just have to do this quickly. Is Marianne asks, regarding repatriation flights to South Africa, will people be quarantined after arrival in South Africa? And if so, for how long?
Yeah.
That is still the current practice, yes.
2 weeks, and 14 days?
Yeah, it's at this point, it's 14 days. There was speak that it goes down to 10 days, but it's, I think the best thing to prepare for is 14 days.
Wonderful.
Maybe just to quickly share an example of one of our clients recently. So I think the standard practice is that people are being booked into a quarantine hotel, which was the case of my client. However, there's also a process to apply for sort of, how do you call it, home quarantining. But that's a specific process that must be approved before the person arrives. And that is not always the case.
Okay, no, thank you for that. That's quite important. Okay, to you now, Hans, and also to Carmen. Harry says we have an engineer stranded in Germany. He's living in South Africa, but has a German passport only. Is there any chance to bring him back to South Africa before level 1?
So again, I think it depends on the actual, if he had a permanent, and Hans, please jump in here if I'm incorrect. But if he had a work visa, or is it, permanent residence, it really depends on what he is holding in terms of permits to be in South Africa. That would determine whether we can get him back. Okay,
I see an answer, work visa. Yeah, so maybe just to jump in here. Foreign nationals with existing work visas are not allowed in at the moment. There are exceptions. So there's a special process where the employer can apply for an exception, a specific permit, which must be usually endorsed by the Department of Trade and Industry. And then Home Affairs needs to also issue an endorsement. It very much depends on who's the employer, what impact do they make in South Africa, and what's the role of the expat.
Okay, and Hans, so that you know, Harry says he has a work visa. Okay, just so that we are okay.
No, I saw that. Yeah. Super. So this process applies for foreign nationals with what we call temporary residence.
Perfect. And then one quick question. When will visa applications for South Africa traveling to Spain open up? Okay, that's a difficult one to answer.
Difficult,
right now.
Yeah. Difficult. I think we can maybe ask the Spanish embassy when it might open. That would be a good question to pose for them. But I would assume that once our borders are open, or maybe they would start looking at it now under level 2. Very hard to say, because if they issue a visa to travel, you would have to be able to exit the borders from South Africa, and with the borders being closed, that's very hard to do.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's carry on with some more questions to our panel. Now, duty of care is something very important, because we need to be looking at this, especially as the borders open. And one of our experts in duty of care, and must I tell you, he's a pioneer in this, is Arthur, who's been working on this very, very strongly for a long time. And for us to feel that we are traveling safely in this COVID world, Arthur, we'd like to ask you, what can travelers expect to be the new norm in this COVID world when we're wanting and we need to travel, please?
Yeah, just to reiterate what I said earlier, that every country is free to put their own regulations out there. So we have to remain nimble and move with the regulations as they get announced. You're moving between 2 sovereign nations, right? So if this sovereign nation has more strict regulations than where you're going, or vice versa, things to consider. I think our next task as the travel industry, and the hat I'm wearing is from the retail side, is our next task and job is to boost customer confidence. We have to re-excite everyone who wants to travel, right? In a safe manner. I think let's not kid each other. Hygiene protocols are going to be around for quite some time, right? Social distancing will be around 18 to 24 months. I can't see a country going through the pain of all those publications and putting those arrangements in place and then just lifting it in 2 months' time. So that happens on board as well. We've spoken about that. It happens in the airport, your rental vehicles, your hotels. So these hygiene protocols will be around, and there's, of course, under SA legislation, a duty on the owner or the management team then of that business or facility to enforce those hygiene protocols. they've been publishing best practices. So all
Arthur,
of
can
that's
you
out
repeat
there.
that? Sorry, Arthur?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. You went blank. Could you repeat that last sentence again, please?
Yeah. So the suppliers that such as the hotels and car hire and the airlines, they have a duty on them to enforce the health and hygiene protocols. Think of your cabin crew members. Let me just put it out there. They're not our waiters on board. They're first and primary our safety officers. So health forms part of a safety protocol. So it's their job to ask you to wear your mask. It's their job to remove you from the cabin if you're unruly, right? If you don't want to comply. There's articles out in the media earlier this week where CNN published about unruly passengers on a Southwestern Airlines flight that just refused to wear a face mask. For that, the aircraft needed to turn around. It impacts on everyone. So I mean, if we're asked to do that in a public space, we have to all be compliant with that. The future, in terms of duty of care, as my colleagues have alluded, we think the touchless world will be around for a long time. It's exciting as well. I can't speak to what's already in place and what's definitely in place already, because there's no one standard across the globe that everyone has to follow. It's a bit of a blank slate. And I'm convinced, wearing my travel hat here, we're largely governed by the International Association for Travel Agents, so that's IATA. And we're confident that all the speak will eventually filter upwards, and then there would be some kind of standard regulation or standard announcement that gets filtered down the ranks. But at this point, there's no one standard that everyone needs to adhere to. But best practices, by all means. Think of airports maybe adopting touchless check-in of your boarding pass, moving through security without having to hand your passport to someone. So that happens currently in South Africa, in any case, under the level 2, the level from level advanced 3 to level 2, when you're checking in through security in the airports. In any case, you're not giving it and handing it to someone. You do that touchlessly. So we're excited about seeing what technologies and innovations are coming our way to make that entire experience seamless. One of my own colleagues in the UK, for example, and can't say that that's still the case, but just to create a sense, they had to travel via Heathrow in the last month when their borders had just opened. Well, he said those that have traveled through Heathrow in the past will know it's a busy airport. From the moment that he left the roadside curb to sitting on his aircraft seat was 15 minutes because everything was touchless. Now, let's hope, fingers crossed, again, you're speaking to a travel professional, fingers crossed that seamless technologies and adopting technologies will make the travel experience smoother. Nothing of any of this is new or unusual, just by the way, right? We've already needed to comply with health declarations and certificates and yellow fever certificates and showing certain types of documents. COVID, it's just a new complication that's come in there. Scary, yes, but just an extra complication.
Arthur, thank you. You know, you've now opened a new question for me, which I'm going to direct to Raluca. Raluca, we've heard Arthur speak about the certificate for the yellow fever. And I know that right now we don't have a health passport for COVID-19, but when do you expect that something like this can sort of come about, especially with this iBot technology that you're bringing about, please? We can't hear you, Raluca. Raluca, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, I forgot, sorry. This technology is valid for 300 or more serological tests, not only for coronavirus. So we are going to give the same results and the validation and the identification of the results to the owner of the cell phone without any manual intervention. This will be automatic. It will be using artificial intelligence and machine learning, interpreting and validating with doctors, because we have to apply European Union and all over the world regulations. But this is very exciting because we can do all these tests and we can write in the system for each and every person who tested the situation, the results of the test. So also very important is that everybody going in an airplane to be sure that nobody is there positive, with mask or without a mask. I don't think we are confident and very, very on our confidence that we travel with somebody that is infected. So we help these traveling agencies, airplane agencies, to bring in the airplane only people that are negative tested. This is very easy because they will have on the cell phone already, they will have a green if they are negative, a yellow, doesn't matter, they will not be there. So everybody will have on their cell phone a green screen saying that they are negative for coronavirus. For other type of viruses and test kits and so on, will be different approach, but for corona, everybody will be green.
Wonderful. Oh, Raluca. So can we expect this in about October, do you think?
October, yes. October,
wonderful.
We are
thank you.
Prototype, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raluca, because that will certainly make us feel a little bit safer when we're getting into the plane, that if the airlines and governments will say, oh, okay, this can be a new tool that people have to present, it will certainly give me a huge level of comfort.
Yes.
Arthur, because we're heading into load shedding, I want to ask you a question, please, just to add on to this duty of care. And you've already alluded to some of it, but do you believe that technology will be the savior of the travel, hospitality, and tourism space in the new norm? And how quickly do you think that will happen?
I'd probably not earn my salary if I'm going to say yes, only technology will be the savior. I'm going to say it's a good hybrid between people. It's people that's traveling, so you want to interact with people, but I believe we're already using technology to help us in our journey, right? We're using mobile apps to warn us of weather patterns. We're using technology to tell us if something's disrupting my journey. So most certainly we believe it will just keep on building on that. And it's exciting to hear these technologies that become available and the innovation that brings about. But let me also just say then, Manuela, that it's a duty of care goes both ways. There's a company responsibility to make sure that the travelers in their care, or the people that work for them, are well informed. Knowledge, power, right? So the more the technology can push knowledge and information into the palm of my hand, I suppose the more comfortable and confident I feel to continue with my journey, right? So I don't think we should underplay technology's part by any means.
Oh no, thank you. You know, often I must say I agree with you, because I think a combination of the interaction of face-to-face with an agency, I've got to be very honest here, I would be very nervous to go online right now and try book anything, because I end up being in trouble. And,
well, and it'll cost you more, because you wouldn't know of all the variations that can come into play there, right? So and you're carrying all that risk, and that's maybe not something that you want to be doing now. We've been advising our customers in terms of some hot tips, things that they should have been doing in any case during this quieter time, is look at your travel policy. Look at your company's travel policy. What's the fine print in there right now? Are you permitting your staff members to travel in a health emergency? Are you allowing them to travel in a weather emergency, in a safety emergency? Now, health has just, I suppose, surfaced more to the top right now. Thinking your health policy, in your travel policy about cash in hand, that's probably become more of a question now. A traveler that sits cross-border, can't get back home, has to be stuck in a hotel there or in quarantine. Do they have cash in hand, or access at least to cash? What is the fine print in the travel insurance that you've issued for them? Does it say, does it exclude pandemic cover in there? That might be something you need to look into right now. Think about when they come back to your home country. Are you permitting them to immediately come to the office if they've gone to a high-risk area? Even if they've come through quarantine, do you maybe want to build in mandatory work from home periods into your travel policy? Things to think about, you know? And I suppose my mantra right now to business owners out there is allow for extra time on each journey, right? The connections are going to be a bit longer. You need a bit more time to maybe comply with regulations on the ground. Make sure that you have travel apps, you have access, or you have registered for good travel apps with good up-to-date travel alerts. Educate your staff on the health protocols that's out there. But I think if I can, in the few minute or two that I have left, maybe just say this to our audience: we have to remain smart travelers. Be smart about this, right? Don't be fearful about it, but be smart, right? This is certainly an unusual time for us, but navigating risks in business, that's what we do. We navigate risks every day. We have to think about financial risks. Now we have to think about health risks as well. So it's unusual times, but it isn't unknown to anyone that's been in business. So don't be scared to have the conversation. Sit around a table, talk about what needs to be done in your business in regards to your traveling audience, and then document it. That's what you should be doing right now. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that, Arthur. Hans, I've got a question for you, which is going to be added to another question that one of our audience member has asked, which is, how do you see the future panning out for immigration and human mobilization? And I'm going to extend that question by saying that Beatrice has asked.
I saw the question.
There you go. So if you can just add and answer, Beatrice, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. No, thanks for that. The future. Look, I think in general, this pandemic has taught a lot of people how to work remotely. So we've created a culture with each other where we're comfortable, using technology to connect. So really the need for immigration is probably going to decrease a little bit. On the other hand, direct human interaction is something very special. And I think having you right in front of me, really brings a differentiating edge to any conversation. And it's difficult to really read someone, through a screen. Mobility and immigration will definitely stay around. However, I think technology will, probably take a little portion of it going forward. With regards to Beatrice, well, thanks for the question, Beatrice. It's actually a very interesting scenario. I don't think I have a final answer with certainty, but I do anticipate, that you're not going to lose the permanent residents on the basis that you can't travel in. This is beyond your control. And we see the same with, whomever is on a temporary residence that has expired during the pandemic. They're not penalized, they're not being declared illegal or undesirable. So I anticipate that it will not be an issue. However, if you wish, we can connect afterwards and I can verify this for you.
No, thank you so much for that.
Manuel, interfere here. Our role with this health iBot is to mitigate the risk, to save lives and to save resources. So it will be a tool for everybody to travel faster, better, for immigration to take place in almost the same conditions like before, because we'll have the data to know for sure who is infected, who is not, who is sick or infection hotspots. So I hope we are going to contribute and to have a safer world in this coronavirus situation.
Thank you so much, Raluca. Yes, I was just going to talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're sort of heading for the end of the webinar because I know that Arthur and Carmen will sort of be switched off just now. What you can see from the discussion that we've been having today is that we are living in a very chaotic environment, because what is happening is it keeps changing on a continuous basis, and therefore it becomes very difficult to have a permanent framework to keep us safe. So this is a learning journey, and we can only become successful if we actually do this in partnership with the right people. Today before you, you've got Wings Travel, you've got IBN Immigration Solution, and we've got an innovator of note, Luca from Eriscan. I invite all of you to connect with them, to empower yourself, because as Arthur has said, and Arthur, I'm going to quote you here right now, when we travel, this current journey is very different to the past, and we need to take both individual responsibility to keep ourselves safe, to keep other people safe, okay? And we've got to work in conjunction with our businesses as well as our travel partners. And right now, our biggest travel partners would be the different travel agencies, and I can talk about Wings Travel right now because they are one of our members, and they've been helping us tremendously to get all of our interns at the Spanish commercial office safely over to Spain. Some of our members that had to travel, we work together as partners to keep them safe. And Raluca, we are now coming to you, and we are asking you, please, if you can push this iBot innovation and get it approved sooner rather than later, you will just help us make our lives a lot easier. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to the very end, is there any other question? And if there is, I invite you to switch off your microphone and put on your cameras, and please direct your question to whichever panel member you would like to answer.
Thank you.
I see that nothing is coming from our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you have our email address. If you've got any question, if you need anything, I invite you, connect with us, connect with me, and I will ensure that you do get connected to the right person. Rosemary, I see that your camera went on and your microphone off. Would you like to direct a question to anyone right now?
No, thank you. I've got everything. Thank you. It's been very informative. I'm from the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency at the Invest SA One Stop Shop. I work closely with Hans. So he's, and we also assist a lot with all visas because VFS is in our office. So I'm always happy through partnerships with Hans and them to assist in any way possible to unblock any blockages for our investors, travelers, or anything related to visas.
Rosemary, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I also have Rosemary's details, and I can tell you that the GGDA are a phenomenal agency that does help people move their business going forward. As I close, I'm going to ask you to please keep safe, keep well, look after yourself, and support each other to keep the community safe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you very soon again. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.